Hello everyone and welcome. Today we're going to be looking into how to create a real-time chat application using WebSockets and Node.JS. So the first thing we need to do is set up our NPM project. To do that, if you go to your console and just do npm init-y, that should initiate our NPM project, and we have this package.json file. The next thing we're going to do is add something to this file. So if you just do type colon and then module. The reason why we're doing this is so we can use the import syntax instead of require, just to make things a bit nicer. So the next thing we're going to do is install the one dependency we need for this project, which is the WS library for WebSockets in Node.js. So we do npm iws to install that. There we go, so that's installed. So we're going to need two files. We're going to need index.html and we're going to need index.js. So index.html is going to be our front end code. Index.js is going to be our Node.js code. So if we get started with the front end, we just need some basic HTML. So we'll do HTML, we'll do head, and inside of that we'll give it a title. So we'll do title, and we'll just call it WebSocket chat. And we need a few things for our CSS. So the first thing we need is meta charset equals and then UTF-8. And we can close that tag like that. We need meta name equals viewport. As far as I'm aware, I think this is to do with making the website responsive. I could be wrong on that one. Width equals device dash width, comma, initial scale equal to 1.0, and then we close that tag like that. So the next thing, we're just going to bring in the Tailwind CSS library. So I'm going to leave a link, or I'll just leave this entire tag in the description so you can just copy and paste it instead of having to write out this link. So I'll leave that in the description, you can find it there. We'll move on to doing the body tag. And inside of that, we've got a little bit of HTML just to make it look a little bit nice, the chat, and then we'll write some JavaScript after that. So we'll start off with the HTML. If we do a div tag, and this div tag is going to have the classes hScreen to make the div the entire width, the entire height of the screen, sorry. WScreen, which will make it the width of the screen. We'll do flex col to make it a column flex, because we're going to have the chat box and then the input where you actually put your message in that gets sent in a sort of column fashion instead of a normal flex row. And then we're going to do justify between. The reason why we're doing that is so that the it automatically puts space between the input and the sort of chat, so that basically the input's on the bottom of the screen. It just makes it look a bit nicer. When we actually open up the HTML, that'll make more sense when we open up the actual page in the browser. So we've got a div here, and we're going to give it the ID of chat. So ID equals chat, and this is where all the messages are going to be displayed. And we'll give that the class of p3 to add 3 padding around the sides, around each side, and then overflow auto. And what this will do is, as we type in more and more messages, it's going to add a scroll bar to the entire web page, but we just want the scroll bar on this specific div. So adding overflow auto will do that for us. Inside of that, what we're going to do is put a p tag, give it the class of text gray 700, and we'll add another class py-1, which will just add some space between these, because this is going to be the actual chat text message. So we're actually going to have a lot of these p tags. If we add 3 in for now, but later on what we're going to do is have it so it adds these automatically using JavaScript. So when someone sends a message, it will add another p tag. But for now, we'll just do that just so we can see what it looks like. We'll do another div, and we'll give that the class of flex, and this is where we're going to add our input. So we'll do input, we'll give it the ID of message, we'll do type, type equals text, and then we're going to give it some classes just to make it look a bit nicer. So px-3, this will add padding of 3 on top and on the left and right axis. Sorry, is that left and right side, not axis? W full, so this will make it the full width of the page essentially. We'll do border T, so this will add a border to the top. Border grey 300, so this will give it the border the color of grey 300. We'll do outline none. Tailwind by default will add an outline when you click into things, so on an input it will add like a black outline, which we don't want. So we can do outline none to get rid of that, and then do text grey 700 for the color of the text. And then we'll add a placeholder too, so we'll just do placeholder, and we'll just put type your message, and then ... And then we can close that. Then we need a button, so if we do button class, and we'll give it the class of px a py 3 bg green 500 to make it the button green. We'll do text white, and we'll do hover. So this isn't really necessary, but we can do hover green 600. So we'll change the color on hover, and then we'll do transition colors. So what this will do is it'll just make when we hover over it and it changes color, it'll just make it a bit smoother. So instead of changing instantly, it'll add a little delay to it. So we'll do onClick equals send message. So we don't have this function yet, but when we add it, close that, it'll call it when we click this button. So if we just do send, and that'll add the text send to the button. Okay, so that's all we need for now. We're just going to open up this in the web browser just to check that it's working okay. So we've got text message, and again, and then at the bottom we've got our input box, and then we've got a send button here, which you can see when we hover over it nicely transitions to a darker shade of green. So that's all we need for now. We'll start adding the JavaScript code now. So if we do script, and inside of script we are going to basically just set up all the functions we need to get this chat working. So if we do const ws equals new WebSocket, and then inside of this we're going to pass in the URL that we want to connect to. In our case it's going to be ws://localhost with the port 3000. So we'll set that up soon when we actually work on the backend code. So the first thing we want to do is add an event listener. So we do ws add event listener, and we want to listen for the message event, and we can pass in a function, and that function will have an event passed through to this function. So using that event, we can do const data. So this is going to be the data that we get back from the message. So what we'll do is we'll do json.parse event.data. So to explain why we're doing that, basically the way that we're going to send data back and forth is through strings, but we want to send JSON data. So when we send a message from the front end, we're going to stringify the JSON data to turn it into a string, send it to the back end. The back end is going to parse it using this function essentially, json.parse, do whatever it needs to do with it. Then it's going to send some JSON back as a string, and then we're going to get it here, and we're going to pass it, and then we've got some JSON data. It's just much easier to work with JSON data, but we can't really send that through a WebSocket, so we have to turn it into a string before we send it. So what we're going to do is we're going to check the type. So we'll do data.type. So what we're going to do is in order to tell what type of message is being sent, we're going to add a type to it. So in our case, we're just going to have a message type. So we'll do this. But you may have other types in the future. So in order to differentiate between, whichever type of message you're going to get. So this is going to be a chat message, but you could get a data type that's like status. And then you want to do something different if the message you're getting is of type status. So we're just going to check that it's of type message. And we're going to do add message. So we don't have this yet, and this is going to be data. A bit confusing, but basically the data is going to be the message that has been sent. So the next thing we're going to do is create a function called send message. So we'll do send message, and what this will do is grab the message from the message input and send it to our server. So we'll do const message equal to document.getElement by ID, and the ID of our input is message. So we'll do that, and then we'll just do .value to get the value from it. And what we're going to do is we're going to check that there is actually a message, and if there's not a message, we're just going to return false. And it's up to you. I can't really type. There we go. Okay. It's up to you what you do in this scenario. Basically, what's going to happen with return false is if they click the submit button and there's no message in the message input, we're just not going to do anything. But you could, create an alert. You could create some kind of validation error on the input and display a message under the input saying like, "Oh, you need to add a message," something like that. Or input cannot be empty. But for us, we're just not going to do anything. Then we can do ws.send, and we'll send some JSON back, but as a string. So we'll do json.stringify, and we'll have a type, and that's going to be of message, and then data, which is going to be the message. And what I was saying earlier about sending back strings of JSON might make a little bit more sense now. So we're going to send basically a JSON object, but as a string. And then on the server, we're going to pass this and get this JSON object back. And then we can do whatever, depending on the type. So, for example, in our case, when the type is message, we're going to take that message and then send it out to all the WebSocket clients connected to our server, besides the client that sent it, which will make a bit more sense later. And then we're going to call add message again, and we're just going to pass in the message. So what add message is going to do, and we'll create it in a second, is add a paragraph to our chat div. So essentially create one of these, but with the message inside of it. And then what we're going to do is do document.getElement by ID message .value, and we're going to set that to an empty string. So when you send a message, it will clear the input, ready for you to send another message. So now we're going to do the add message function, which you've called a couple of times now, but we haven't actually defined it. So we'll do it here. Add message, and that's going to accept the parameter message. And we'll do const node equals document.create element, and it's going to be a capital P for p tag. Then we'll do const text, so this is going to be the text of the p tag, equals document.create text node, and inside of that we're just going to pass in the message. Then we'll do node.append child, and we'll add the text to the p tag. Then what we're going to do is node.classlist.add, and this is basically how you add classes to nodes when you create them in JavaScript. So we'll do text gray 700 and then py-1, and then we want to add that to the div with this chat div up here. So we can do document dot get element by ID. It's going to be the ID of chat, and then we can do dot append child, and we append this node to it. So we'll add a new paragraph to the bottom. So what we can do is we can get rid of these now, and we don't need them in there. And we can give this a try. If we get rid of the ws.send, we just comment it out, and we open up our browser and we refresh this, and we type in a message and we do send. There we go. So we're not sending anything to the server yet, but we are adding it to our chat. So you can see that's working nicely. So if we refresh that, there we go, just clear that. So that's pretty much all the front end code done. If we just uncomment this. So that's all the front end code done. That should work perfectly, hopefully. We just need to add the back end code. So what we'll do is we will import WebSocket, and then also import WebSocket server from WS, our WebSocket library, and then we'll do const WSS, which just stands for WebSocket server, equal to new WebSocket server, and then we can pass in using an object the port that we want it to be hosted on. So we'll just do port 3000. You can do whatever port you want, just remember that you need to specify the port in here. So port 3000, and we'll do wss.on, and then we'll do connection. So this will be called when somebody connects to our WebSocket server. So we'll do a function, and we'll call it connection, and that's going to have a parameter of ws. So when somebody connects to our WebSocket server, it's going to call this function, and it's going to pass in the WebSocket connection that's been created. And then we can listen on that WebSocket connection for a message event. So ws.on message. And again, we can do another function for that, and we'll just call it message. And then that has a parameter of message. So when somebody sends a message, it will call this function with the message, and then we can do something with it. And in our case, what we're going to do is do const data equals json.parse message. So as I mentioned, we are stringifying the JSON data. So send message ws.send. So when we run ws.send, it essentially calls this function, and then we're passing in a stringified bit of JSON data, or a stringified object, I guess, and that means that on our backend we need to then parse it to get the JSON data back in the form of an object. So the next thing we need to do is check what type got passed in, data.type. And if it was equal to message, what we want to do is send that message to all of our clients besides the one that actually sent it, which we can do like this. So we do wss.clients. So clients is a store of all the clients that are connected to this WebSocket server. We do .forEach to loop through all of the clients. And we do client to get an individual client. And then we do if client is not equal to the current WebSocket client. So this is the one that sent the message. So if the client is not equal to the one that sent the message, and client.readyState is equal to WebSocket.open, we'll send client.send JSON.stringify, and essentially we'll send another JSON object back. Well, it's going to send it back as a string. We're going to set type to message, and data to, this is going to be a bit confusing, but data.data. Because essentially we're getting the message from here. So the message is stored as data, which we can access through data. It's very confusing. Yeah, I'm confused myself here now. So basically we get an object called data, and inside of that object you've got a type, which we're using here, and you've got data, which is going to be the message that the user sent, and then that's going to send to all of the clients that are, first of all, not the one that sent it, but then also their WebSocket is actually connected, so it's ready to receive data. And yeah, we're just sending through this JSON string, essentially. And then on the front end, we're going to listen out for a message. We're going to pass the JSON string. We're going to check that it's of type message, and if it is, we're going to add a message in here, which is just going to add a p tag to this div. So we can give this a try. If you want to run it in your terminal, just do, I'm typing in there. Just do node index.js and try that. And you shouldn't get any errors, hopefully, all being well. So if we just open up network and we refresh this, we should see a WebSocket connection open up. And then if we send a message, test, it should send a JSON string, essentially, with the type message and data equal to the message that we put in here, which is test. So what we can do with this is open up another browser, and that should also have connected. Let me just refresh this. So you can see it's opened up the WebSocket connection. It's ready to receive receive data, sorry. So if we put test in here, so that's sent it up to our backend, and then you can see that we've received that message as well on this client, and we're displaying it here. And we can do the same thing here. We just type in some gibberish, and it displays it here. So we've got a little chat going. Maybe it'd be better if we show them side by side. So we can send a message here, and it adds it there. So that's the basics. I'd like to expand on this further, adding things like authentication, validation, and that kind of thing. If you're interested in that, let me know. I'd love to do more videos on real-time stuff. I've got an idea for a project that might be quite cool to work on a little bit later on when I actually finish the project. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching. Any questions, let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like and subscribe. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.